Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight on Family Tips Tuesday from Harvest Bible Chapel. So, tonight I'm going to be covering the Household CTO. This is just a quick presentation on how to secure your family internet at home, and we'll just have a quick Q&A afterwards. If anybody has any questions, raise your hand and I can pause too. That's fine. This is not exhaustive by any means. It's not too detailed by any means. Anybody can do this. I highly recommend everybody to do this because by default, your house is wide open to the internet. And by the title slide, you can kind of see this is a pretty typical scene. Half the time, the adult's not even in the room. So whatever's going on there, it's entirely up to them. And if you don't have your internet filtered, well, you're just you're letting them have at it with anything. But let's get started. So making conscious choices about technology in our families is more than just using internet filters and determining screen time limits for our children. It's about developing wisdom, character, and courage in the way we use digital media, rather than accepting technology's promises of ease, instant gratification, and the world's knowledge at our fingertips. And it's definitely not just about the kids. So that was a really good quote by Andy Crouch from the TechWise family. And that was within just an interview on the Dad Tired podcast, which I highly recommend. It's really good information, Christian-based information on there. And they were discussing how to deal with technology with your children. Filtering was discussed, but there was no information on how to take care of that. So that's what we'll be covering tonight. And it's really pretty simple. So what's a CTO? Most companies and organizations have a CTO. It's the Chief Technology Officer. So sometimes called the Chief Technologist, but an executive level position in a company whose occupation is focused on this technology within that organization. Sometimes we all play that role. I would suggest in a family situation, it's the parents, both of them together. The husband and the wife should be the combined Chief Technology Officer. It can be one of the parents for all the time if that's how you want to defer it, but you guys should definitely have a discussion pretty regularly, just like we have financial discussions regularly. Technology is in our lives no matter what, and it's in our kids' lives, and it's up to us to take care of that responsibility that God has allowed to be in our lives. So I suggest that be a mutual discussion all the time. So a CTO is aware and vigilant, creates and enforces rules, hopefully that are biblically based, serves and protects their family, and educates and facilitates. So if you're having a discussion about technology, whether it's with your spouse or with your child, that you're learning along the way, and there's a rhyme and reason why you're deciding to do what you need to do within your home as far as technology goes. So awareness and vigilance, so desktops, smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, fitness devices, security cameras, smart devices like Google Home or Amazon Alexa, Ring doorbells, and much more have dominated our culture and attention over the last decade and a half at this point. But it's important and biblical to be aware of everything that is brought into your household. So Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. And how easily can the springs of life be taken away from us when we are not vigilant with what we are consuming and what our children are consuming. So let's go over the rules. Let's make sure they're realistic. Let's make sure that they're unilateral. You don't want to flip-flop on things. Let's make sure that we have our lockdown procedure and that we are being educationally minded around it. We know what we're doing to our network and why we're doing it, and that we have a servant heart around it, so that what we are choosing to do is meant to serve our family and benefit them even if that means taking things away. So let's go over the procedure. It's a pretty funny image. So typically what you would want to do is do a technology audit. And honestly, this doesn't take that long, but you'd be surprised how quickly the number will skyrocket of how many devices you have in your home that connect to your Wi-Fi network or your direct network in some way, shape, or form. So I would just say, go around together, husband and wife, and just jot down every device that you trip over, every device that you see laying on an end table, every device that's in your pocket, and count them up and just see if it needs to be on the internet at all. And you'd be surprised. Most of the cars that get pulled into the garage will connect to your network whenever you pull it in. The next thing I would say is set up DNS filtering, which we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to go through it at a broad level because it will depend on each and every router that you have installed in your home. I'm not going to be able to cover every person's router type. I'm going to cover mine, which is a pretty common one, common brand, but the procedure is the same no matter what, so it should relate, and you guys can follow up with any questions. I'd be fine to answer and help. The next thing would be just determine what kind of blocking or additional filtering you would want to do on top of the main DNS filtering that we're going to talk about. Any tracking or scheduling or accountability needs, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And then setting device schedules, which is similar to that. So we have a wide open, unfiltered internet in most of our homes. We also don't ever block it. So it's up and running 24/7, 365. Why? If somebody wakes up in the middle of the night and they grab a device, like, that's rife for doing bad things. What's the old saying? Nothing good happens after midnight. Yeah, that's fairly true. The last thing would be like setting up alerts or anything like that. It's optional, helpful if you really need to, if you really need that severity level, which I'm not even going to go over that tonight. All right, so let's get into it. This will get into the portion where we talk about the actual network filtering. So if your home internet doesn't have a personal Wi-Fi router, meaning one that you didn't buy, so it was provided by your ISP or your internet service provider, I highly suggest you buy one. So say you have Comcast, Xfinity, Armstrong, Verizon Fios, Time Warner Cable, etc. You purchase their internet service, they charge you monthly. If you are using their box, their modem and router, Wi-Fi router, you can go ahead and do that. I can't say that this tutorial will be able to take care of it because those boxes are a lot of times locked down. They're so proprietary that they don't let you change the DNS settings a lot of time. And I definitely know most of them charge you a monthly fee on top of it for using their hardware. So it does benefit you for doing a one-time $70, $100 one-time purchase for a Wi-Fi router. It will save you money over the life of that service that you have with them. It will let you have the flexibility to filter the content going into your home. If you're using their box, they're doing a lot more surveillance on you. They're doing their own filtering. You have no control over that. So I will send out the PDF to this entire slide deck, and it has all the links in here as well, and you guys can read up however you want on that. This is just a suggestion. This is my opinion. It will help you better maintain your own personal network if you have your own Wi-Fi router that you purchased. So let's talk about router care. Assuming that you do own your own personal Wi-Fi router and you are handling your devices, some really quick tips to secure that network. Please change the default router management password. Most routers, and I'll get into it, they have a very default admin, the admin username is admin, the password is password, or something to that liking. And the easiest thing to do is if you go over to somebody's house, I know that seems weird right now with all this lockdown, but you could go into anybody's house and essentially hit their router site, and I'll show you what that means in a second, and enter admin and password, and you're likely gonna get into their router, and you could control it any way you wanted to, and you could see all the devices connected to their network, which would easily allow you to find data on anybody in there or anything that they have stored in their home. So the wild thing about home networks these days is most people have Wi-Fi routers that are pretty powerful, and they can stay connected up to a quarter of a mile. So the fact that you could just be driving past or walking past and you can easily get into somebody's router and find information, and especially in dense populated areas that the homes and the apartments are close together, it's a pretty trivial process to get into somebody's network because people don't change that default router username and password. So do that. It's really simple. I'll show you. Check the firmware updates regularly on your router. That's also a very simple procedure. Because routers are really easy to hack from the outside world, it's a really easy target vector for hackers. So they're constantly trying to attack them and get all of the personal devices that you have in your home. They're trying to get access to them. So hardware manufacturers, router manufacturers are always updating the firmware, which is the software that's embedded on the hardware of that router. They're always plugging security holes. They're sometimes making your internet faster because of the updates that they give to them. So I would suggest check that quarterly, every other month, at least once a year, please. Check for firmware updates and update your router regularly. And then turn your guest network on. I've gone into plenty of homes and asked for access to their Wi-Fi network, which most people are graciously very forgiving and will just give it away, especially when they don't have a guest network, which means I have easy access. I can see every single device in their home, and if I wanted to find information on those devices, it's not that hard to do so. So all routers these days have a separate guest network. When you log into your router and you're managing it, please turn that on. Make it a simple password for your guests. That's not a big deal. You're still allowing them to have access to the internet that you're paying for in your home, but you're separating your personal devices from theirs. So keep that in mind. That's a really important one and an easy one to do. So let's get into the meat of this, which is the filtering of the internet and why you would want to do that. So would we walk our children into a strip club? Would we knowingly turn on some porn instead of Disney Plus for them to walk for them and walk away while we go about cleaning the house or mowing the lawn or working on our cars? I highly doubt it, and I pray that's not the case. You never know. But we should filter because we love our family. We want to protect them, right? And we should filter because we understand that seeing everything that they see is probably not possible. We hand them devices and we walk away, or we give them the remote and we walk away. It's life. We're making dinner. We're going to the bathroom. We can't see everything that they're seeing. And we should filter because God tells us to, because it's our job as parents to protect our children and what they're consuming, what they're seeing, and what they're hearing. So in order to do this, I'm going to suggest you setting up an open DNS account. You don't have to. There is a way to do this without actually creating a new account, and I'll show you both ways. But there is a benefit to opening up an account, and it is free. And there's also an alternate solution as well called Cloudflare. But what I'm going to cover is called the home account for OpenDNS. I'll show you that really quick. I'm going to talk through this really fast and then I'll show you how to do it. So After you create an account, what you do is you actually log into your router, the management software, and you update your DNS settings to the ones that OpenDNS provides. Now, if you choose to go with Cloudflare, they're going to give you different DNS settings. So let's step through that really quick. So if you go to opendns.com, this is what you'll be greeted with. So this is a company, this is a service that's actually owned by Cisco. So you should be familiar with Cisco. They actually make routers. And you'll also notice the Linksys brand as well is also under them. So these links are all available. So Family Shield or Home Account. Let me actually go to one of these so that you can see what I'm talking about, because I'm just going to log into the main site. So this is if you would want to create a free account for the home. And then this is the free Family Shield. So the free Family Shield doesn't even require a login. All you do is update your DNS records on your router right here. Now, that doesn't give you the flexibility that we're going to go through. That'll block a lot of adult content and things like that. But know that this is now being managed by OpenDNS and you have no control over what they're blocking or not blocking. So that's why I suggest going and creating an account under the home. So let's log in really quick and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is my personal network for OpenDNS. And now I'm actually going to show you logging into my router. So most of you will be able to log into your router if you open up a new tab in your browser and type in 192.168.1.1. It's the most common router management address. Less likely you may see a 10.0.0.1. Now that's how mine is set up, and I did that kind of on purpose because it's less likely to have that set up that way. So I'm going to log into my router management software. Now I have a Netgear router. You guys might have a different router type. You might have an Asus or a Google Wi-Fi, a Linksys, what have you. Most of these management pages that are, essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking at a website that's driving the actual router itself. So any changes that you make in here, they get reflected and changed right on the router itself. So I'm actually going into the internet setup, and this may look a little different for you, but if you go to OpenDNS, they actually step you through how to do this for every single router type that is imaginable out there. And all I'm doing is changing the DNS records. This is the domain name server. So instead of getting them automatically served to you from your ISP, I'm forcing DNS records that I'm putting in there that are provided by OpenDNS. That means any content that is being pulled from us or viewed in our home, it actually goes through OpenDNS's records instead of my ISP, so that they can filter all the content for me. So OpenDNS is basically just asking for these two DNS records, and that's all I'm putting in my router. So the 208.67.222.222, and then the 208 is the secondary DNS, 67.220.220. Then I'm hitting apply, my router reboots, and now OpenDNS is filtering my internet. That's really the only thing you need to do to filter your internet. If you get a free tool that OpenDNS provides, or that other one from Cloudflare, there's also other ones out there that are available and free. They're really just going to give you 2 DNS records to change on your router. And the beauty of this is that it is filtering everything on your network. It does not matter what device comes into your home. It is now protected and filtered. There's a lot of solutions out there that people want you to buy, but those are all per device, which means you have to install it on your iOS phone or your iPad or your desktop or your laptop. It's ridiculous. Who would want to manage that? We've already done an audit, right? That's the very first thing we've done. It's too many devices to manage. The best thing that you can do is to block and filter your internet at the router level. Covers your entire network. So this is a free account. The beauty of having this instead of using just their wide open DNS records is I can actually go in here and I can manage my own network, which means now I get to determine what I want to filter provided by them. Now they have a straight, low, moderate, high bucket where you can just click this radio bucket and it'll tell you what groups it's blocking. Or you can go down here and you can customize and you can just start figuring out what you want to block here or unblock, which is really nice. And then the other things you can do is you can add an entire domain here. So if you want to put in facebook.com and always block it, you can do that. I will say facebook.com is one of many that you're going to need to block that fall under the Facebook umbrella. They own a lot more services than you realize, and facebook.com is not the only one. And then you can also set up a never block. So say you selected one of these things and a fairly innocuous site you realize is blocking and you don't want it to block, but you like that category is blocked, you can put in that direct URL domain address and add it, and it'll never block it. So it goes both ways. You can essentially set up a blacklist or a whitelist. So before I move further, this is where I'm going to do a live demo, and this is where things get a little scary because you want this to work, right? If this is a demo fail, it gets really bad. So whenever I do this and I set up this filtering, whether it's on my own and I make sure that my own network is working, or I help a friend or family and I set this filtering up, what do I go and I try to hit without it being too terrible, because you don't want anything crazy popping up. This is what you see. So that's a good thing. if that was a demo fail, that'd be not the worst thing in the world, but pretty bad. And before I move off of this, ladies, if you get the catalog sent to your mailbox every month, why? You can just go online and order things for your husband that he likes you to wear. Please don't get that mailed to your house. It's easy to tell them to stop mailing it. Trust me, your 12-year-old will find it. All right. So, very similar DNS settings. You can find them in an ASUS router, Belkin, Cisco, D-Link, Google, Linksys, Netgear, TP-Link, you name it. You may be able to find them in your Comcast or Xfinity router. You might be able to. I wouldn't be able to tell you where or how, but if you Google, you could probably find it. So essentially all you're doing is changing those DNS records, the primary and the secondary. Some other things you can do, a lot of routers will let you see the attached devices. So this is every device that's currently running on your network. So it'll typically list them and it'll list all the IP addresses. The nice thing is if you see one pop up, you can actually tell it to block it immediately, even if it's your kids. You can just shut them off. It's kind of fun to do. So there's device control. You can just block them directly. What's neat is you can kind of double down on this. So even though we blocked at the network level through OpenDNS, Most routers will also let you put in block sites as well. So if it's easier for you to just update your router, go ahead and do that as well. But I like what OpenDNS gives me from a wide bucket of categories perspective. This would be for 1Z, 2Z domains that you just want not to be accessed by your family. You can also set up schedules. So if you don't want your internet running all the time, if you want it to shut off at midnight every night, you can set up a schedule. Most routers will have that built in. And if you go to your router's website, they'll have all this documentation. It's really not that hard to read. It's pretty simple. And even if you just log into your router and you start poking around, it's pretty basic and understandable. You can't mess up too much stuff. So that's the basic DNS internet filtering. Thank you, Zoom. I love you too. I really don't. Next, I'm going to get into ad blocking. So this is additional blocking that you can do. This is entirely up to you. This is going to be very much my opinion. Take of it what you will. So ad blocking plugins and applications should be used on all browsers, in my opinion. And most people will be like, well, isn't this immoral? And I would say that's a total gray area. And the gray area is because that's how online publications make a living, through advertisements. But you've all seen the content of those ads that your kids are scrolling through, that you're scrolling through. They're terrible. They're awful. Most listicle articles, by the time you're halfway through the article, they've already popped up 3 of them, and then there's a pile of them down at the bottom. So why bother seeing them at all? So it's entirely up to you if you want to ad block. I would suggest doing it because there's a lot of malicious stuff in those ads as well. You can run an alternate browser such as Brave or Dissenter if you want. They have ad blocking on by default. Those are based off of the open source Chrome core. It's not the actual Chrome browser, but it's based off of the core architecture of Chrome. And if you're really feeling bad about stealing money from those terrible advertisement people showing softcore porn to your innocent child as you're just trying to read them a book on your iPad, the Brave browser actually lets you donate money, and it gives them like portions back to those content providers. So if that makes you feel warm and fuzzy, be my guest, but I really don't feel bad about it at all. I want to keep my family safe. So you could even go crazier and block ads at the network level. And there's a project called Pi-hole. It's pi-hole.net. And that's essentially a very similar thought process of what we just went through with OpenDNS and filtering the actual internet sites, where this thing will block ads at the network level. And it's pretty strong and severe, and it's awesome. But I will let you know that I haven't even implemented that yet because it's pretty technical. But I'm just giving it out there for those that may watch this and want to go down that route. So how to block ads? Really simple. Install a new browser. So I've been giving you the links to Brave or Dissenter if you feel like you want to go down that route. If you're wanting to keep Chrome or Firefox or Safari, that's perfectly fine. I use Chrome still. It's hard to break the habit. But I will suggest a really easy extension that's available for all of those is called uBlock Origin. And just make sure that you have Origin in your search. That's important because that name got taken pretty quickly as they realized how popular this ad blocking tool was. So in order to get the original, get uBlock Origin. It is great at blocking ads on all your browsers. And there'll be a little widget in the upper right-hand corner with all your extensions. Right here, this is it, uBlock Origin. Look, just on this page, it's blocked 400 crazy ads and cookies and things that are trying to track me. And it's really easy. You just click on it. If you want to turn it off for that page, you just hit this button right here and it'll stop trying to block ads just for this page. Okay? Really easy tool to use, and it blocks a lot of stuff, and it really, I don't even see ads anymore half the time because I run that everywhere, which is really good for protecting your little one's eyes. Monitoring. So the only people that can really monitor are us. If you need help with monitoring, you can install monitoring apps. A lot of times when we talk about protecting our family and all the devices, people lean towards these things. But really what I went over is filtering at the network level, and that's really what you want to attack first. This is really another whole layer. This is different. You can monitor your children with software, which is time usage, what they're viewing and consuming. That software can do all that stuff. You're likely going to pay for that service, but it's just software. It still doesn't replace parenting. Why would we want to do that? Because God tells us so, in time spent, in consumption, and accountability. So you can set up services like Covenant Eyes, X3 Watch, which is XXX Church, is the one that developed that. Accountability U or Net Nanny. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of all those services. They're all pay-for services. Some of them may have free trials or free light versions. But it's really accountability. It's monitoring. I will say I've used some of these services with people that have asked for help in this respect, with help getting, out of a porn addiction. These services do work great. For accountability, they're top notch. You pay for that, but it's well worth it if it helps them get over whatever they're addicted to. So I don't know if you would need to go this level with your children. Hopefully you wouldn't, but this is out there and available if you have to do that. So let's talk about some homework, and we'll wrap things up with any questions or answers. Well, I'll give the answers, but any questions that you guys may have. So what I'm going to ask that you guys do after tonight, whenever you have free time, is to get together with your spouse and discuss and come up with a plan. So talk about your current internet usage, among each other, how you guys personally deal with your internet usage, and then how you deal with your children and their usage and all the devices in your home. So do that audit of devices. Count them up. It's crazy. If you don't feel like counting them up, log into your router for the very first time. And after you've updated your password, which I hope you all do, go and find the page where it shows you the currently attached devices to your network. It's a pretty long list. Mine's really long. It's about 30 devices. It's amazing. And then when friends and family come over for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it gets crazy fast. And then learn. So listen to some sound advice on technology in the family when dealing with kids. So to get you started, I'm going to send you these links. There's 3 podcasts or articles that you can either listen to or read, and then have a discussion with your spouse about how you want to go about managing your technology in your home. Go ahead and do that audit. Determine which devices need to be even on your network at all. If it's something dumb, why is it always, if it doesn't have a screen on it, but for some reason it's connected to the internet, why? Why is your refrigerator connected to your internet? I don't know. But if it doesn't need to be, then block it. Don't allow it to connect to your network. Even though you own the device, it doesn't mean it has to own you. So just restrict it. And then if you want to set up schedules or schedule even an individual device, which some routers allow you to add a personal schedule to that one device that's your child's or whatever, go ahead and set those things. And then any additional websites that you want to blacklist, You can do that at the router level, or definitely go ahead and do that on OpenDNS for sure. And then discuss this. Have a family discussion. Don't just cut your kids off cold turkey without warning. They're going to freak out. They're not going to know what's going on. The world will end. Even more so than the quarantine has ended the world. If the internet gets cut off, that's the thing that they're most worried about right now. They're not even sad about school being canceled for the rest of the year. Just as long as the internet keeps going, they're happy. But if you cut them off cold turkey, might be a rough go. So have a discussion, make it biblically based, let them know that God doesn't want us feeding our minds and hearts with garbage, because it's going to turn them into garbage. Guide them into understanding what's good and bad content. That's important, especially when the internet is so wide and open. They have to understand what's good and bad. It scares me when I see my kid open a browser tab and just go to Google and just start typing. It freaks me out. And you can even change the settings inside your browser as to what comes up automatically. You know, those autofill searches, you can actually turn that off. And then implement it. So whatever that plan is, whatever you discussed with your family, put it into practice. Go ahead, put those filters on, and if it needs adjusted, well, have another family chat about it and adjust it. And that's where the reassessment comes. You're going to need to reevaluate every so often as they grow older, as new devices come to the market that we've never even known of. You're always going to have to chase this. The thing is we're so used to everything just working. Isn't that the beauty of technology? It's like magic. It just works. And we seldom put any effort or thought into that. Yet we just let our children at it or ourselves at it. And it wrecks a lot of marriages. It wrecks a lot of husbands. And it wrecks a lot of wives too. So that is most of it. So thank you guys. I hope this was helpful to you all, and I hope you keep your family safe online. And I will open this up to questions, but right before I do, there's a little extra credit here. And if you want to understand how challenging it can be to chase some of this stuff down, if you just want to block the TikTok app from your children's devices, it's one thing to uninstall it. They're just going to reinstall it. They're going to find a way. But just blocking that one core app at your network level. So say a friend of your child comes in, they have the TikTok app, and they came over to play. I know, quarantine, right? But theoretically, they come over to play, they're going to show that your son videos on TikTok. Why not block that at the network level? And then even though they have the app, they're going to go, why is my phone not working? But just so you can see how crazy and how large these companies and services are, just the TikTok app, look at how many individual domains you would have to blacklist inside of OpenDNS just to shut down TikTok. You can imagine that Facebook and all their services is probably 4 times that size. There's just, these companies are massive. They have so many services, so many domains that they're running, that is really hard to chase all this stuff down. So I hope this is helpful. I highly recommend using OpenDNS. It is a great starting point, and thank you guys for listening. If anybody has any questions, I'll unmute you and we can have a little chat. Otherwise, thanks a lot. Anybody? Oh, Big D. Hit it, Darren.
So you said we are using the router that was sent with our Verizon package. We've got 3 boxes in the house. and you hit it right on the head. It was easy enough to just, they don't even send a technician to the house anymore.
Nope.
But you get the stuff sitting on your front porch, you plug it in, and they're like, just stand back, 20 minutes and we'll take care of it. And then boom, you're set up.
Yep.
We haven't gone in and set that up as far as any controls. Now is this, back, I'm getting ahead of myself. Is this the one you say we may or may not have different levels of access because we didn't buy this third party, or this is tougher nut to crack, you're saying?
You may be able to get a hold of your DNS settings inside that router that they provided you. So likely when you purchase service from your ISP, whether it's Comcast, Xfinity, or Verizon Fios, or Time Warner Cable, or whatever, what they give you is they give you a modem and then a Wi-Fi router. And a lot of times the newer ones, it's all wrapped up into one package. It's a modem router.
That's what I got.
Okay. It's one big black box that they give you. They say plug it in and it'll just work.
Yep.
Which is fine. Easy peasy, right? That does not necessarily mean that you can get into their management software. I would suggest flipping that thing over, looking at the model number, and start doing a Google search on it. There very likely is a hidden address page that you can hit and a default username and password to get into it and manage it. I couldn't tell you how to do that. I can tell you that any off-the-shelf retail Wi-Fi router, they are basically all the same. That's why I listed all those brands out there. They all have that ability because they expect people to want to be able to manage their internet. The ISPs don't necessarily expect that, and they want to control the cards. So I can't tell you if you'll be able to or not, Darren.
Okay. I know I had 5 or 6 Linksys that I bought at Best Buy or whatever prior to this because they weren't registering every product years ago that came to your house, and you could use whatever you wanted. Essentially, you were getting cable boxes and the router wasn't as important, or if you had a separate service. But now we've got one box that serves us both. And Evan's really never unattended, but this is a very timely presentation. I appreciate it very much because Corinne has great controls set up over his iPod, which we will let him in the room. He just probably within the last 3 weeks now with this quarantine, we've just now let him jump on with friends to chat and do things. And she's got a lot of controls on it. And she's even asked me in the last couple of days, she's like, do you want to see all this stuff? I'm like, I do, but at the moment I was working or whatever. I was like, but I definitely want to see. And she was actually even just this afternoon talking about setting up a timer because I'll walk around the corner and he's like, hurries up and sets it down. And I've told him, I was like, look, buddy, there's nothing you can do. And I tell him this, I'm like, there's nothing you can do that I can't, backtrack and find. Like you think you're erasing your history and everything else. I scare him pretty good. And so I'll go into Bing, but what you see, this was spot on, dude, because it was, I opened Google and I'm like, what were you looking at? And he's like, facts on dolphins. I'm like, okay, well, let's find out. So I just start typing, facts on D. And then, like you said, you're getting all kind of suggestions and whatnot. And I was like, see how everything comes up here? But this is good information at a different level. And especially the guest network thing, too. I need to do that because we do have people that every time they come over, they're trying to hit stuff. So, but I guess that wasn't as much of a question. It was saying you hit it. Is this something you can share, this whole presentation, or is this just for...
Yeah.
I was screen capping as we went because I didn't know if you were going to make it available, but I was screen capping to at least get those links.
Yeah, so I'm recording the entire video presentation. I'm going to post it up on the Harvest website, and I'll also post the PDF as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this was great.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we're getting pretty close to the 40-minute mark. Thanks to Zoom. I appreciate everybody listening tonight, and God bless during the quarantine, and keep your kids safe on the internet. Thank you, guys.